I saw a guy holding a gun. The door of the Capitol Gazette had been blown to pieces. It was in shattered pieces all on the carpet. And this guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun.
A newsroom massacre. At least 5 people are dead after police say a man opened fire inside a community newspaper's headquarters. We are expecting a news conference to begin any minute now, and we will bring that to you live.
Here's what we know right now. Police say the gunman is now in custody. Detectives trying to figure out who he is and why he did it. A massacre happened inside the Capitol Gazette building in Annapolis, Maryland. That's about 50 miles east of Washington, D.C.
Well, that's where CBS2's Kylie Atwood is live as we prepare to get another update. Kylie.
Pat and Jeff, what we're looking to hear from local officials is any more that they can tell us about the suspect. Right now, we know that he is a male in his 20s, a white male. We don't know much more. We know that he damaged his fingertips, which meant that investigators weren't able to use fingerprints to identify him. He also wasn't carrying any form of identification.
Apparently, the police said several shots have been fired. Possible shotgun, at least 10 shots heard.
Police in Annapolis surrounded this office building housing the Capitol Gazette newspaper Thursday afternoon as people rushed out with their arms up.
We've had a terrible shooting incident here this afternoon.
Law enforcement sources tell CBS News a suspect opened fire with a shotgun, killing several people.
Those who are injured have been transported for medical care.
Phil Davis, a crime reporter at Capitol Gazette, tweeted as the shooting was in progress, writing, quote, "Gunman shot through the glass door to the office and opened fire on multiple employees." In another tweet, Davis said, quote, "There is nothing more terrifying than hearing multiple people get shot while you're under your desk and then hear the gunman reload."
I saw a guy holding a gun. The door of the Capitol Gazette had been blown to pieces. It was in shattered pieces all on the carpet. And this guy was holding what looked like a big shotgun and moving across the entrance of the Capitol Gazette office, pointing the gun deeper into the office.
Police say they were on the scene within a minute and quickly took the gunman into custody.
Our officers were on the scene very, very quickly. They did engage the suspect, and that's when he was taken into custody.
Roads in the area are shut down as police and federal agents investigate.
They went immediately into that building without a moment's hesitation and demonstrated incredible courage. And we are so deeply appreciative of their great work. It could have been a lot worse.
Sources tell CBS News that investigators are using facial recognition to try and identify who the suspect is. We're looking to see if there are any more details coming to us tonight. Back to you, Pat and Jeff.
All right, well, Kylie, I know you're waiting for more information, but is there anything more you can tell us now about the shooter? Do we know if he worked at the paper or knew the people?
We don't know. There are a lot of tips out there that are coming in, but nothing has been verified. What we do know is that he used a shotgun, that he shot through a glass door, and one of the reporters who was in there described.
Okay, we do have breaking news. This is the press conference we have been anticipating related to the shooting in Massachusetts. Let's go there now live.
It's just the hill.
Yeah, who picked this spot?
You guys did.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Anytime, sir.
My name is Bill Krampf, Krampf. I'm a deputy chief with the Anne Arundel County Police Department. I want to first start off by saying that we have de-escalated the scene. As I mentioned before, our tactical people are out of the building. Our investigative people have entered the building and they have started their investigation. As a person, a white male in his late 30s in custody, and our criminal investigation division investigators are interviewing him now. He entered the building. This was a targeted attack on the Capitol Gazette that is located at 888 Bestgate Road on the first floor. He entered the building with a shotgun and he looked for his victims as he walked through the lower level. We have secured the building. We are in the process of notifying the next of kin. We have 5 confirmed fatals and 2 injuries. The injuries, to my understanding, are superficial, possibly from glass from the shotgun blast. We are working on now securing his residence. He does live in the state of Maryland. We are in the process of securing that residence and preparing for search warrants. So this is the next phase of this scene, and that is the investigative phase. This is the part that takes the most time. As I would assume many of you have already heard from many other police agencies in the state of Maryland and across the country, the investigative process is very difficult. We must be thorough. That's why you will not get the information from social media from us unless it's been confirmed. We have allowed our investigators to do their job. They are there now, and we are going to continue to provide you with information.
Chief, you said it was targeted.
Hold on 1 second. I want to share something with you that I think is important. We mentioned before about the improvised explosive device. That is not an IED. It was actually canisters of smoke grenades that he used inside of the building when he entered the establishment. So this person was prepared today to come in. This person was prepared to shoot people. His intent was to cause harm. And as I stated before, the investigative part of this is going to be thorough, and it's going to take some time. As you can see behind us, we opened up Bestgate Road. We thought that we may need to secure that roadway for a long period of time. And as we get further into the investigation, we realize that we don't need that roadway. But the building, 888 Bestgate, will be secured for some time. I do not have a time frame on that yet. We're going to be inside there for quite a bit, and until this investigation is complete. When I have more confirmed information, I will share that confirmed information with you.
You said he targeted specifically this newspaper. Exactly what was his beef with this newspaper?
That's what we're investigating now.
But there are already reports that he had a history with the newspaper a couple of years ago.
That's what I'm hearing.
Chief, does he live in Annapolis?
But before we confirm that, I need our investigators to go and look into that and make sure that's correct.
Chief, does he live in Annapolis?
Difficulty initially identifying the man, that you went through a process of traffic information regulation to get an identification. Is that why you're able now to go to the home to do a search potentially?
No, I can't share that with you. It's the first time I've heard facial recognition.
Is he being cooperative? Is he answering questions?
I can't answer that. He is at our criminal investigation division. Our detectives are down there with him. I have not interrupted them to ask him if he's being
When do you think we're going to get any more information on the suspect?
You will have the information as soon as we confirm.
Is this somebody that's known to you, Chief? Is it you have a history with him?
Can you confirm if this suspect did have a connection to the Capitol Gazette? Can you tell us that?
The only connection I can tell you about right now is possibly through social media.
But
I have no other confirmation.
Any of your department had any issues with this guy in the past, or other departments?
We are still looking into that. I cannot confirm whether or not our department has come in contact with him. We will have that at a later time as well.
Have you received any comment from any family members?
Chief, is he a resident of Maryland? Can you at least tell us, is he a resident of Maryland, or he came from outside?
No, he's a resident of Maryland.
Chief, did he know who he was looking for? You said he was walking through looking for victims.
That's going to be part of the investigation. I can't confirm for you whether or not he actually knew employees there, or if he just targeted a business in general.
Chief, can you able to confirm his identity?
Can you tell us where in Maryland he's a resident?
No.
When are you able to confirm his identity, Chief? Because a lot of us already have the names.
Chief, can you provide any information on the type of shotgun? Was it a sporting shotgun? Was it a tactical shotgun? And can you provide information about these smoke grenades, if they were commercially available or military?
I don't have that information.
Chief,
so were all the people shot in the newspaper office, sir?
I can't confirm that. They were shot on the first floor.
Deputy Chief, there's a talk about the gunman trying to hide his identity in certain ways, maybe with his fingerprints burned off the face. Can you confirm any of that?
I cannot. It's the first I heard facial recognition and the first that I've heard anything about fingerprints. We have no verification on either.
Can you confirm he has a criminal record?
I can't confirm that.
Did the Gazette have any threats against him, or any threats either on social media or directly sent to that building? Do you know?
We know that there were threats sent to the Gazette through social media.
You have
by this person? By this person, those threats were sent by this person?
No, the threats were sent over social media. We're trying to confirm what account that was, and we're trying to confirm who actually sent them.
How old were the threats sent?
I'm sorry.
How long ago?
How long ago were those threats? To my knowledge, those threats were as early as today. I can't answer that. The broken windows on the 4th floor, as I mentioned to you guys once before, we have a two-phase approach, right? One's tactical, one's investigative. Those broken windows on the 4th floor, probably, and I will confirm this, but I'm almost positive they came from our tactical guys.
Deputy Chief, are all the 5 fatalities employees of the Gazette? Are all 5 fatalities employees of the Capitol?
I can't confirm that.
Have you had a chance to see the surveillance videos yet?
We have not. In fact, that's a great question. In fact, we're pulling all those as we speak. We have property managers here. We have everybody that's associated with that building. Here's the interesting part. Governor Hogan and Mr. Shue, our county executive, has mentioned this numerous times. And if you see this gentleman behind me from the Red Cross, we have had so much support from around this state, not only law enforcement, but both private and public sector. And this gentleman's one of them from the Red Cross that have come and just asked what they can do. And that's important for us. We have to take care of a lot of people in a scene like this, not only police officers, but our victims' families, and then we have to get everybody back to normal, right? That's our job. So that's why we have these people here.
Chief, can you tell us anything about how he was apprehended, and did he say anything to those responders?
I can't. That's part of the investigation, and when I'm able to get that information to you,
did the paper have any security in place, given the fact they got threats?
Chief, how about his age? Any
late 30s.
Was there any security in the building, given the fact they were dealing with threats?
We don't know that yet. That's part of the investigation. We're looking into that as well. Based on the threats, not to my knowledge, no.
Chief, what about his
fingerprints?
If they have, I am not aware of that personally, but we will look into that because of those threats, and we'll get back to you on that information.
Chief, were you able to take his fingerprints?
Say that again?
Were you able to take his fingerprints?
Were we able to take his fingerprints? That'll be part of a whole booking process, yes. Eventually his fingerprints will be taken.
There are reports that he changed his fingerprints.
I'm sorry?
There are reports of that with his fingerprints.
Yeah, I'm going to be really clear about this, guys. We have no information about facial recognition or anything about his fingerprints. If I had that information, I would give it to you, but we don't have that.
Chief, as you're trying to verify the social media account, can you talk about the specificity of the threats? Can you talk about the threats? What kind of threats were made against the Capitol?
What I can share with you now is they were general threats towards the Capitol. The Capitol is a media outlet.
But I mean, was it saying I want to kill somebody? Was it harm they were threatening, or was it just saying I'm never going to buy your paper again? Give us an idea of the level of threat.
It's a good question. So when I have that information available to you, I will be more specific on the threats.
Can you say that they were violent threats?
The threats were about a specific story?
No.
Can you say that they were violent threats?
They indicated violence.
Were they directed at anyone in specific at the paper?
Those politically motivated threats?
Can't answer that.
Was he targeting anyone specifically?
We do not have we have no knowledge at all that he was targeting anyone specific at the Capitol. No.
Deputy Chief, has the Evening Capitol talked to you at any point recently about some concerns or threats? Have they personally contacted you? Did you guys have a conversation with that?
No. Look, I want to be clear about another point. The Capitol newspaper is our local newspaper. We interact with the Capitol newspaper daily. Lieutenant Frazier is our public information officer. We have friends at the Capitol newspaper. We speak with these men and women on a daily basis to get stories out that are important to the citizens of this county. So we're here, we're invested, we're going to get this investigation right, and we're going to come back and we're going to give you credible, confirmed information to answer all your questions.
You're going to have a name on the suspect?
soon.
Was there a boosted
One more.
police presence after the threats were issued? Can you say whether...
Say that again?
Was there a boosted police presence of any kind after the threats were issued?
No.
I'm just curious.
What about the
Last one.
Can you tell us anything about the injured? Have they been released? We've heard now that they're minor. Are they minor injuries? Or?
I can't answer that. We have 2 individuals at Anne Arundel, and then we have 1 at Shock Trauma. All right, one more, that's it.
Was there any indication that he had any tactical training of any kind?
No, we do not know that yet.
And Chief, are you going to release a name tonight?
In the morning, so in morning time. Yeah, so just to update you guys with the next briefing. So we don't anticipate having any further information until tomorrow morning with releasing the suspect's name. As you know, there's a lot of investigation that's going on right now, so we don't want to jeopardize any of that. Again, we just from the Anne Arundel County Police Department, like the chief said, we interact with these reporters every day like we do a lot of you guys.
Okay, you've been listening to a press conference in Annapolis, Maryland. Acting Police Chief Bill Cramp gave some very detailed information confirming that this was a white male in his 20s. He also confirmed that the suspect targeted the people that he was going to shoot, that he actually targeted the Gazette, the Capital Gazette newspaper. He strategically looked for people to shoot. He made threats, some as early as today, through social media, according to the acting police chief. And he also carried canisters of smoke grenades to actually make his way into the building. So this was something that he had planned. We don't know exactly how long, but this was something that was not just on the moment. He certainly planned this attack. He doesn't have a reason why yet, but this is what has happened so far. And he is in custody. They're trying to question him, but he's not cooperating.
And the chief said that he's resident of Maryland, in his 30s, and you mentioned that he entered the building providing cover with that smoke grenade. They thought at one point in time he had an IED, but they said that that was not the case. They indeed now think it's some sort of smoke grenade. A total of 5 people dead, all found on the first floor of that Capital Gazette newspaper. 2 injuries. We're told those injuries were just minor.
And that's probably due to the glass that shattered. You know, another interesting note here is the fact that the chief wanted to make sure that facial recognition, he didn't want to come out and say that that was how they were able to identify this person. We have had other reports saying that, but he didn't want to confirm that right now. And no further information, he said, will be offered until tomorrow morning.
Okay. We'll continue to follow this story here on CBS2. And following that shooting, police did step up security around newspapers and TV stations in L.A. and New York.
And our Dave Lopez is in downtown L.A. outside the L.A. Times. Dave?
Pat, we're at the main entrance of the LA Times behind me. A lot of people coming out. No one wants to make any comment whatsoever. This is a very secured building. There are a number of other entrances. And the LAPD want to make it very clear that what they have done today is they're not throwing any chances whatsoever. They have told all of their officers in the field, and they have gotten a hold of every single media outlet, television, radio, newspapers in the Southern California area, that they are here. They have checked in with the various newspapers, the TV, radio stations throughout the area. They have checked in with their security, and they are making sure that anything that they need, their security, the LAPD is right there. Now, they also sent out a tweet. As you can see on the sidewalk, there are no extra police officers. You will not see that, I am told, by the LAPD, but what you will see is a constant communication. They are checking in constantly with the security people at these various offices, and that will go on for an indefinite period of time. LAPD sent out this tweet earlier today. It says, quote, LAPD is closely monitoring the Annapolis Capital Gazette shootings. There is no direct threat at this time. We are reaching out to our media partners as a precautionary measure. We encourage Los Angeles to trust your instincts. If you see something, say something. Now, we also have a couple of pictures to show you that were taken from inside the CBS broadcast center in New York City, and it shows police officers outside the building there. It shows them right outside the front door, and it also shows them in SUVs just outside the door as well. Again, you will not see that anywhere here in Los Angeles, but the police are aware. Also, we want to show you some video that we just received not too long ago. This is New York police presence in front of the New York Times building. A little more high presence over there, and we are also told that there are officers stationed in front of the ABC News headquarters. Again, back here at the LA Times, police officers did check in. They went into the lobby. They were up and down. Hello, how are you? Another couple of employees coming out of the LA Times building. Again, it's a very well-secured building, as most television, radio stations, and other newspapers are throughout the area. So again, you will not see patrol officers in front. You will not see officers in the lobby, but they are there. They are aware. and they're not taking nothing for chance. Back to you in the studio.
Dave Lopez reporting live for us downtown. Our coverage of the Maryland newspaper shooting will continue here on CBS2 throughout the day. Let's go to some breaking news right now. A brush fire in the Bel Air, Holmby Hills area.
We will get to that in a minute. We will want to talk about the CBS updates and the CBS Evening News with Jeff Glor to follow up on that Annapolis, Maryland shooting.
Let's go to that breaking news. A brush fire, we're told, in the Bel Air, Holmby Hills area. That fire has burned so far about a quarter acre.
Well, Jeff, we're told no homes were threatened. Firefighters say that proper brush clearance around homes helped keep the fire from spreading.
Okay, turning now to the forecast. No, Garth is standing by, and we could certainly use some relief for those firefighters.
That's for sure.
Not going to happen. Yeah, not going to happen as far as, well, through part of the state. Good afternoon, everybody. Up to the north. If you're heading up to the north, just a heads up, red flag warnings are going to go into effect. They're going to pick up some winds, some offshore winds, very dry. So the central part of the state to the north over the next several days going to be under the gun. Please be vigilant. Right now for us, 73 degrees. Took a while for some of the beaches down to the south to clear out this morning. West winds at 6 miles an hour. But boy, Long Beach is looking very nice right now. 91 San Bernardino, 89 into Lancaster, 72 into Big Bear. And you can see better than we were yesterday a little bit. 80 Van Nuys, 73 out towards Camarillo, and 70 right now. Just down by the airport. So 79, we're a degree cooler than we were yesterday. Remember, I mentioned yesterday we were going to ebb and flow. Just depends on how quickly the marine layer burns off. 1 or 2 degrees all the way out through the extended. But you can see Oxnard, onshore winds out of the north-northwest there. And then they increase out towards the Banning Pass and then up into the high deserts as well. These are the red flag warnings. Once again, they go up the state of California. They will be going into effect and off to the east. So Vegas all the way down. You can see them down through Kingman as well as high pressure begins to build into the area. Tomorrow, 2 to 5 degrees cooler. We have a trough for us, but the high will build into the central part of the state. Once that happens, that kicks off those red flag warnings. But until then, for us, we seem in fairly decent shape as far as the 7-day goes. Here it is, real consistent, a little cooler over the weekend. Then we're going to still track some more humidity coming our way next Wednesday into Thursday for the IE. Look at the high deserts, 93. The mountains coming in at 78, 80. By Sunday. We'll have another check coming up a little bit. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Garth. Well, double trauma for one local family. 2 children are diagnosed with brain tumors in recent weeks. We'll have their story coming up.
And they could hear her, but they can't see her. Can you spot this little girl lost in the woods? The story of her remarkable rescue is straight ahead here on CBS2.